At Snitch, we've always believed in true and honest pricing. Discounting for us is a medium of either giving an opportunity to consumers to find certain products which are really for grabs, or we will not do it.
We were delivering those packages clearly showed us that now it's not women-led purchases happening from marketplaces also and so forth, but actually men who are also now participating and placing those specific fashion orders as well, which are coming in.
And I honestly believe India is not 28 states but 28 countries. So what sells in Bangalore will never sell in Tirupati, and what sells in Tirupati will never sell in Delhi.
Forbes and DTDC, behind India's D2C revolution.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Forbes India and DTDC present Behind India's D2C Revolution. Now, if you are building a brand or thinking about starting one, you have to stay with us. Because by the end of this conversation, you won't just hear how a homegrown fashion brand scaled, you will also understand how categories evolve, how consumers discover brands today, and what it takes to build across both digital and physical worlds. So let's continue decoding the real playbook for building and sustaining a consumer brand in India. In every episode, we bring perspectives from founders shaping how India consumes, discovers, and decides. Joining us again is Abhishek Chakraborty, CEO of DTDC Express Limited, bringing a deep view into how consumer behavior translates into real demand across markets. And today, the conversation moves into men's fashion, the shift to omnichannel, and how discovery itself is being redefined. For that, joining us is Siddharth Dungarwal, founder and CEO of Snitch, a brand that has grown rapidly by understanding how modern consumers shop, experiment, and engage with fashion. Both of you gentlemen, welcome to the show. Pleasure having you both with us. And Siddharth, let's begin by understanding from you, because there has been a grudge in the fashion market that for years, women's fashion really drove most of the experimentation that we've seen in India. So what changed that made menswear a high growth, high opportunity category?
The idea for us was everyone was focusing on women's fashion, but there was no one who was solving for men. When especially we started Snitch, spoke to a lot of these 23, 24-year-olds and, given them a list of brand names and asked them, would you shop from them? Most of them said that this is probably my father's brand and I will never go to those stores. Found out there was a huge opportunity there. Secondly, brands like H&M and Zara were entering India and disrupting the traditional model of business. So we knew we'll have to build it very differently. And then when it comes to brands, sorry, but men are more loyal, right? When it comes to brand loyalty,
You mean they stick with something if they like it?
absolutely.
Right, okay.
Men love anything which is instant gratification. If you tell a man that this is a skin oil that you'll have to apply for 6 months to see that 2% change, 90% of the chances that people will drop off in the first 2 weeks. And that's what I meant by instant gratification. And I think anyone building in the men's space just needs to understand what are the common traits of a man and then start building towards that.
Very interesting. And I really hope it was that simple for women in fashion.
Yeah.
Sometimes we envy you. But then, Abhishek, let's talk about the early signals that you perhaps picked up in menswear in India that was shifting from a utility category to a demand-led, aspiration-driven category. Were there any signals that you picked up?
I think the inflection points has largely been when India moved from traditional only offline buying to a much more wider assortment of digital buying, and therefore whether early e-commerce or today's quicker or rapid commerce. But the phenomenon is very clear. Earlier, men would buy because they were tagging along with their better halves who were on a shopping spree and said, okay, while I'm there, let me pick a formal shirt because I need it for office wear. As the word was coined, to find a much more metrosexual man in India is also a trend that picked up. And then men kind of felt, we too need to have a choice. We too need to express ourselves. I don't think the foreign brands, the foreign retail and apparel brands were really looking at that. I think what Siddharth and Snitch has achieved is, first of all, identifying that unmet need and then committing to it and going whole hog. And then what we saw is the kind of orders that were being placed, the decision choices that were being made, when an assortment of goods were being bought from a certain website, what kind of new products started coming into that when we were delivering those packages clearly showed us that now it's not women-led purchases happening from marketplaces also and so forth, but actually men who are also now participating and placing those specific fashion orders as well, which are coming in.
Right. My next question is to both of you, and we've seen this being a pattern from online to becoming omni-channel. We've seen that most of the D2C brands, they start digitally. At some point, physical retail becomes inevitable. So what fundamentally changes, Siddharth, if you could answer first, when a brand moves from online first to truly being omni-channel?
Look, we were very clear that apparel is always going to be a touch and feel sort of a factor. Consumers really love experiencing the product before buying. And hence we knew at some point we'll have to go offline. I think the first 3 years we were probably only online. That means our own app. And then we entered marketplaces. And 2023 is when we started our first offline store. And to be honest, it was more like an experiment that we wanted to do. We picked up a store where there was absolute no retail presence just to try and understand what is the sort of pull that, the brand would have. And that did phenomenally well. The unit economics were unheard in the industry. And that gave us confidence to double down. And over the last, I think, 14 months, we've opened about 112 stores today.
Wow. Okay.
And that was easy for us to execute because we had served over 3 million consumers online. We exactly knew where our consumers are, what are they wearing, what are the sizes that sell in which geography, what colors sell. It became easier for us to go there, adopting to those particular regions. And our inventory model is very, very different, wherein every store is unique in itself. There'll be barely about 20 or 25% of inventory which is similar across all stores.
Okay.
Which means that, and I honestly believe India is not 28 states but 28 countries. So what sells in Bangalore will never sell in Tirupati, and what sells in Tirupati will never sell in Delhi.
So it's a very conscious effort to keep inventory exclusive to certain regions or unique.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Because we go by data, which is been really insightful for us to understand. Like if you look at everything that was done traditionally, right, and why is that sort of moving away, is because today's youth wants to be unique.
Yeah.
Right. When there is something which has too much of availability, people shy away from that because everyone wants to sort of look exclusive.
So just a quick follow-up question to that also. When you became an omni-channel product, what did offline retail unlock for you that you were not able to get from digital alone market?
I think I call it more like the umbrella effect. Wherein when you press the umbrella, that the rod that goes up is e-commerce, and once it opens up, that's offline, right? Which gets you a lot of stability. I think 3 years we'd spent a lot of money marketing the brand, and then with offline it became much more easier for us to pull consumers in.
So Abhishek, looking at Snitch's journey in becoming omni-channel, what does it tell us about these changes that brands make when they decide that now it's time for us to be physically present amongst our customers? Have you seen any pattern? What are those fundamental changes that I was trying to find from him? Have you seen in working with the
I think the
brands?
core fundamentals obviously have been very well explained by Siddharth, but the fact remains there is not an inevitability, but I think an absolute necessity that you have to move towards that offline presence because of the category and what it means. But I think there are different reverse effects also that come into play, right? When you get good success online and somebody sees you offline, you're discovering new consumers. But it also means that when your online consumers go and see your brand offline, they have a greater sense of assurance and understanding. They taste or test out your new categories that you're trying to introduce. But once that category sticks, because of the loyalty that is already playing in, they are happy to buy that same product back again online. Because it's almost like you're trying to gain new confidence.
Absolutely.
If the confidence establishes, you again want the convenience of receiving it in 1 day, 2 days, and now as brands like us work together, we look at receiving it in hours or minutes. So I think there's a beautiful interplay happening. It's not one or the other. I think any brand owner like him will tell you that we're not trying to make one format compete against the other. It's that network effect that comes from both of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Playing,
I mean,
right?
wherever we've opened our offline stores, we've seen online traffic growing dramatically. And that's sort of been a great learning also for us, that how do you unlock new consumers is either you go in and put in a lot of stores in one cluster so that your online growth happens, or the vice versa.
So,
And if I may add one
yeah,
point, just
yeah,
sir,
sure.
it also means, I'm sure he'll agree, that when you buy from a brand online and you start seeing their physical stores proliferating, you get the confidence this is a successful brand.
Yeah.
That means the brand image
Yeah,
that it's
it
going
does
to carry
act like
for me
branding,
is
of
going to
course.
improve. I want to buy more of this.
It adds more credibility.
They are successful. Otherwise, they would not be physically
Right.
risking their hard money on physical stores.
But right, so let's now take this intention of being relevant a step further, and let's talk about building for next generation. When we talk about this generation of consumers, we know that they are more experimental in their choices, not very loyal, whether we like it or not, and are constantly exposed to new options in the market. There are so many players in the market. So, Siddharth, what has surprised you most about how they evaluate and choose fashion brands today?
I think it's a very interesting aspect that especially I have observed, which is, just to give you an example, when I was probably in my teens, my dad would take me to one store, shop for 6 months and drop me back home. That's how shopping in India happened. But today, I think every 20-year-old is the decision maker in every household.
Even younger, I think.
Even younger,
Yeah.
right? Because parents find two things there. One, they think the kids are more smarter and more tech savvy and more available towards the digital world. Two, it's become a medium of emotional connection as well.
Right.
That becomes, shopping now becomes like an emotional connection. I've seen this many times in our store itself, when a 20-year-old is calling up his dad and is saying, what are you doing in this store? I want you to come here and shop.
Okay.
Which means that shopping has become an emotional bond. And I think in India, especially if you want to stay relevant, you'll have to change as per the audience keeps changing, like and plus try and open your age or the TAM as large as possible, so that if and try and remain young as a brand, because if you remain as young as possible, it's much more easier for you to drive different age groups as you move ahead.
I think that emotional angle is well spotted. But Abhishek, if I were to ask you, what should founders building for this generation get right early on if they want to stay relevant as expectations keep on rising?
A lot of it, I think, was very nicely covered by him. I would only add to the fact that the pace of change that is expected needs to be anticipated well in advance. You mentioned the fact that loyalty is not a guarantee and assurance today. But at the same time, if a brand is able to demonstrate that they're in touch with what is the essential needs of this new consumer segment, how do they want to express themselves, then while the loyalty may not be with the brand, but people start anticipating that this is the brand that possibly is most likely to bring out the things that we are looking for.
Okay.
So if you can, in every wave and every cycle, have at least those same consumers inquiring with you first before they look at any other brand, then I think you're already doing a great job. And that's the best that you can hope for. What also it means is that the number of new consumers still entering the market is now so large. I think beyond the point, being obsessed about loyalty is probably frivolous. I think people are no longer doing those, award points, buy for me 10,000 and I'll give you $1,000. Not worth it. I need something today. Get me that in time with quality so that I can experience and have a
True
great
and
day.
honesty is a great pointer, which I see, Gen Zs really love, especially the younger audience, right? Like, even if you look at apparel as a category, brands used to price a product basis the discounting journey the product would go through.
Yeah.
Because they always knew only 30% sells on full price, 30% sells at certain discounts. End of season sale will probably consume the less 30%. And hence the guy who bought it first feels, really bad.
Cheated at
Cheated,
times. Yeah.
right? I did not want to use that word, but yeah.
Being
and
a
hence,
customer.
and hence, if you're building a brand, like at Snitch, we've always believed in true and honest pricing. Discounting for us is a medium of either, giving an opportunity to consumers to find certain products which are really for grabs, or we will not do it. Because, discounting earlier was a marketing tool. right? And today's consumer does not like that sort of marketing. True and honesty's been. I mean, we've gone up on social media and told whenever we've booked up on certain orders, whatever that is, we've just tried to stay as transparent as possible, and that's when consumers appreciate you, and that's how you start building trust.
Okay, that's incredible. So let's now talk about going global, especially when we have an uncertain world. This question is going to be to both of you, and Abhishek, maybe I can get your mind on it first. We know that all the Indian brands today are aspiring to go global, but the times are very uncertain. There are certain realities that you have to keep in mind before you understand the supply chains which are going to be shifting. Markets are going to be volatile. Geopolitical uncertainties can change anything in a matter of seconds. If a brand today wants to go global, what should they be building differently from day one?
I think the fact that you are clear about your category and what you're making and for whom you're making, that has to be very clear. Because it's not that suddenly for a global audience, you will start changing your mix. Because for an Indian brand, a far larger consumption will happen from the domestic market itself for the next 5, 10, 15 years. So finding the similar diaspora across the world who would possibly want your product, I think that itself becomes the first step that one needs to get right. But at the same time, I think irrespective of the global shocks that we are seeing or what is going to come, the demand for Indian products is increasing. The demand for other markets which want to buy from India is increasing because they would also like to de-risk their supply chains. They would also de-risk the sourcing that they're doing. The tariff wars and everything has shown that depending on sole sourcing from only one particular kind of a country or geography is always very risky. So the demand tailwinds are strong. I think brands have to be clear that going international is not a casual choice. Go at it after good thought has been put in. Your product's AOV has to be good enough that it can withstand the fact that shipping costs and everything else is going to be a lot higher. A good loyal consumer base, which of course now in the digital world can start talking about it, and someone sitting in UK could know about what's popular in India.
Right.
That is a positive thing. But then being able to sell at that price point with supply chain, with the time that it takes to deliver, with duties and taxes and all of that has to be thought through. I would only leave it that don't go at it casually and find good international logistics partners like DTDC and our worldwide offerings, which would make sure that we see you end to end. And because of the fact that we're not just shipping from India, we have boots on ground in those key markets, whether it is UK, Europe, USA, Canada, the typical markets where the Indian or South Asian diaspora is there, where Indian brands are likely to sell. I think having those pointers connected well would be key to success. I don't think the fear of global shocks should prevent you from wanting to sell, because India is going to export a lot more than it has ever done.
Right. So Siddharth, adding to that, as a brand thinking beyond India, how do you balance your growth ambition with the risks of this, entering an unpredictable world, so to say?
I think, our first objective would be to probably get rid of a lot of international brands which exist in India. But having said that...
Basically edge them out.
Yeah, edge them out. I think, globally or, by nature, Indians have always thought imported hai to acha hai. Which sort of started changing over the last 5 years. And, the matter of the fact is international brands don't live here. They actually don't know what Indians want.
True.
And gave humongous opportunity to Indians to build brands here. Looking at climatic conditions here, looking at, the way Indians budget and buy. The way Indians buy itself is very, very different. And coming to the other angle of going global, I think our tagline itself says made in India for the world, which means we always knew that Indians have been manufacturing apparel for the world for the longest time.
Yeah.
And, what better if, you are able to go there and express yourself as a brand. So as a brand, we've sort of obviously built our own strategies saying how would we go, which markets to enter first. We've already started in the Middle East just because of this crisis. We're seeing a slowdown, but we've had a phenomenal sort of start there and hope that things settle down soon. And, post the online success, we would probably go in the offline route as well.
Yeah, but you did mention the fact that first step would be to edge out the international players who don't really stay here, but they are taking advantage of the Indian market. Something like a Zara, they have built a global playbook on speed and data.
Yeah.
At the same time, India behaves very differently. We have our own taste and price, the choice of fashion and buying behavior. So what did you have to rethink or do differently to make a fast fashion model actually work for the Indian consumer? Was there any, anything in your mind specifically that you had to do?
So I think it's all about cracking supply chain. It is all about predicting demand and then eventually execution.
Okay.
There's nothing else, there's no third eye that I'm seeing in fashion that no one else is seeing. It is always supply chain, moats, execution, and then probably brand, product, marketing.
Oh, yeah. I just love that clarity. But Abhishek, you have seen so many brands grow from close quarters, and there are founders who are trying to build fast-moving categories today. There's no denying that fact. What do you feel absolutely needs to be rebuilt for local realities? What would that advice be to the founders?
I think the fact that the next 3 to 5 years, the demand that's going to come from semi-urban or non-traditional markets is going to accelerate very fast because of the various policies and the economic factors that have played out. The disposable income over there is increasing. The lifestyle choices they are making is different. They want to leapfrog in some ways the metropolitan markets in terms of what they want to choose and how they want to express themselves. I mean, just take a look at social media, how the reels of a person sitting in a metro city versus in a rural market would be very different. And I think understanding that and committing to it this time is going to be important, because India's had 2 or 3 cycles of start-stops. We kept saying India is yet to open up in the rural markets or the remote places, but let's wait. It's still, demand is not kicking in. I think this time it's going to be a little more real. That is going to be one of the things which will be an early choice brands will have to make, in the sense if they want to really see long-term growth, differentiating growth. And I think if that can be cracked, and for us also as supply chain players, I don't think we've always in the past done justice, because we also went where demand was, because it's very costly to otherwise serve the deeper parts of India. But I think what cycle I'm seeing right now, we are very committed to bet on it, and not just make it slow and laborious, but bring it with that speed of rapidness that yes, you can be sitting in, let's say, Nagpur and still get something in 2 to 3 hours, as much as you would want to get something in 20 minutes in Mumbai.
All right.
I think that has to be thought through.
All right. On that note, gentlemen, let's enter the most interesting rapid fire round, and you have to give me quick answers. So I'm going to start with you, Siddharth. One insight about menswear that most people get wrong.
That men don't really talk about fashion, they do talk.
Okay. Online or offline, which taught you more?
I think online, because it was very tough to crack that.
One decision that changed your growth trajectory.
I think deciding to enter the offline world.
Abhishek, your turn then. One pattern you see in brands that scale across channels successfully.
The quality and how they understand their consumer well. Non-negotiable across all channels.
Okay. What is the biggest challenge when brands expand too quickly offline?
Not having done enough research and data and understanding your audience, and just hoping that just because you've got stores, people will start buying. I think that's a mistake I sometimes see some brands doing.
A moment that changed how you view consumer expectations.
When I started looking at what the consumers were telling our customer experience teams, we were obviously serving a brand and delivering their products, but consumers started giving us feedback not only about our service but about the brand and its products. And that said, something is changing here and we've got to respond to that.
Okay. All right. As always, thank you so much, Abhishek. Thank you, Siddharth, for joining us on this broadcast. It was lovely hearing from both of you.
Thank you.
Well, and for our audience, from a digital-first bet on menswear to a fully omnichannel brand redefining how Indian men discover fashion, Siddharth's journey is a masterclass in reading the market before it reads itself. And as DTDC's Abhishek reminded us, execution is what turns vision into scale. Until next time then, thank you so much for joining us on Behind India's D2C Revolution.
Forbes and DTDC, behind India's D2C revolution.